The research ship Stellar Harmony moved slowly through the purple clouds of Kepler-4 for its seas' atmosphere. Inside the cramped bridge, 12 beings from 4 different worlds watched the planet grow larger on their screens. Dr. Marcus Vale pressed, his face against the small window, his breath fogging the glass as he stared at the strange world below. "Readings show heavy biological activity in the southern continent," announced Thyra, the blue-skinned Thylorian science officer. Her 3 eyes blinked in sequence as she studied her instruments. "The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases." Captain Rita Cross nodded from her command chair. She was a tough woman with gray hair and scars on her hands from years of deep space work. "Good. That's what we came here to find. New life forms mean new discoveries." Marcus smiled and turned back to his team, the expedition's xenobiologist. This was exactly the kind of mission he lived for. Next to him stood Alina Torres, the ship's chief engineer. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her tool belt hung heavy around her waist. She gave Marcus a quick grin. "Ready to make history, Doc?" she asked. "Always," Marcus replied. The alien crew members were less enthusiastic. Kethprim, a tall insectoid being from the collective, clicked his mandibles nervously. His compound eyes reflected the bridge lights as he spoke in his translator-assisted voice. "Caution should guide us. Unknown biological signatures often mean unknown dangers." Nexus 7, representing the Trade Federation, bobbed his gelatinous form in agreement. The jellyfish-like being's tentacles writhed as he communicated through bioelectric pulses translated by the ship's computer. "The Federation values profit, but dead traders make no deals. We should proceed with extreme care." Marcus had worked with mixed crews before, but he always sensed the underlying tension. Most alien species viewed humans as useful but primitive. They tolerated human creativity and adaptability, but they never quite saw humans as equals. Feeling was subtle but always there, like a constant background hum. 2 days later, the landing party stood at the edge of a massive cave system. The planet's surface was a mix of purple vegetation and strange crystalline formations that sang in the wind. The cave entrance yawned before them like a great mouth, easily 50 meters wide and twice as tall. "Bioscanners are going crazy down there," Elena reported, checking her handheld device. "Whatever's causing those energy readings, it's deep." Inside, Marcus knelt and examined strange symbols carved into the rock around the cave entrance. The markings were geometric, but somehow organic, as if they had grown rather than been cut into the stone. "These aren't natural formations," he said, running his fingers over the smooth grooves. "Someone made these. Someone intelligent." Thyra's 3 eyes focused on the symbols. "Primitive scratchings, probably made by animals marking territory." "These are too complex for simple territory markers," Marcus argued. "Look at the mathematical precision in the angles. This is language." Kethprim's wings buzzed with agitation. Dr. Vale's enthusiasm clouds his judgment. "We should collect samples from the surface and return to the ship." But Captain Cross had already made her decision. "We came here to explore. We're going in, but we stay together, and we stay alert." The team activated their lights and began the descent into the cave system. The walls were smooth and curved clearly, not natural formations. Bioluminescent moss provided patches of blue-green light that created dancing shadows as they moved deeper. Underground. After an hour of walking through increasingly elaborate tunnels, they entered a vast chamber. Their lights could barely reach the ceiling, and the walls stretched away into darkness on all sides. In the center of the chamber lay something that made everyone freeze. It was enormous. At least 50 meters long and 20 meters wide, the creature lay motionless on the cave floor. Its body was covered in dark, chitinous armor that reflected their lights like black mirrors. Multiple limbs were folded against its sides, each one thick as a tree trunk, and ending in what looked like hands rather than claws. Its head was massive, but somehow elegant, with closed-eyed membranes that suggested intelligence rather than bestial hunger. "By the void," whispered Nexus 7, his tentacles recoiling in fear. Marcus stepped forward, but Alina grabbed his arm. Doc, Don't get any closer. It's not moving, Marcus said, his scientific curiosity overriding his caution. It might be dormant, or even dead. He walked carefully around the creature, noting details. The armor plating showed intricate patterns that matched the symbols they had seen at the cave entrance. More symbols were carved into the floor around the being, forming complex circles and lines that suggested ritual or ceremony. This isn't just a creature, Marcus called back to the group. This is clearly an intelligent being. Look at these markings. This chamber was designed around it. Keth Prime's wings were buzzing constantly now, a sign of extreme agitation in his species. Intelligent or not, it is dangerous. We should leave immediately. Marcus is right, Captain Cross said, moving closer. This could be the discovery of the century. First contact with a completely unknown sapient species. That's when the creature's eyes opened. They were enormous, each one the size of a dinner plate, and they glowed with a soft golden light. The being's head lifted slowly from the ground, and those massive eyes focused on the small group of explorers. The creature made a sound deep and resonant that seemed to come from everywhere. At once, panic exploded through the group. Nexus 7's bioelectric field flared in terror, causing the ship's equipment to spark and flicker. Thyra shrieked in her high-pitched native language. Keth Prim's wings beat frantically as he prepared to flee. Everyone stay calm, Captain Cross ordered, but her voice shook. The creature began to rise, unfolding its massive limbs with surprising grace. It was even larger standing up, easily 15 meters tall. Its golden eyes swept over the group, and Marcus could swear he saw curiosity rather than aggression in that alien gaze. But the other crew members had already made their decision. We have to get out of here, Thyra screamed. It will kill us. All the human brought us into this trap. Keth Prime clicked rapidly. His recklessness has doomed us. Without warning, Nexus 7 triggered an emergency cave-in device intended for mining operations. The explosive charges he planted at the cave entrance detonated with a thunderous roar. Rocks began falling from the ceiling and the tunnel behind. Them collapsed in a cascade of stone and dust. What are you doing? Elena shouted, but it was too late. Save who we can, Thyra said, grabbing Elena's arm. The primitive human made his choice. Marcus found himself cut off from his crewmates by falling rocks. The last thing he saw before the dust cloud engulfed everything was Elena fighting against Thyra's grip, screaming his name. No. Then the cave-in was complete, and silence fell over. The chamber, when the dust settled, Marcus stood alone in the cavern with the massive creature towering above him. The golden eyes looked down at him with what he could only interpret as gentle curiosity. In that moment, Marcus realized that his crewmates had not just abandoned him with a monster. They had abandoned him with what might be the most important discovery in galactic history. Marcus stood perfectly still in the dusty silence, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. The massive creature loomed above him, its golden eyes fixed on his small human form. He expected death to come quickly, maybe a crushing blow from one of those tree trunk arms, or a bite from jaws that could easily swallow him whole. Instead, the creature tilted its great head to one side, like a curious dog examining something interesting. It made another low sound, softer this time, almost like a question. Marcus realized he was holding his breath and forced himself to exhale slowly. Easy there, he whispered, more to calm himself than to communicate with the being. I'm not going to hurt you. Not that I could if I wanted to. The creature's head tilted the other way. One of its massive hands moved toward Marcus, and he fought every instinct telling him to run. There was nowhere to go anyway. The hand stopped just short of touching him, hovering in the air as if asking permission. Marcus looked up into those golden eyes and saw something that shocked him. Intelligence, yes, but also gentleness. This being wasn't trying to threaten him, was trying to understand him. Slowly, Marcus raised his own hand and pressed it against the creature's enormous finger. The skin was warm and surprisingly soft beneath the armored plates. The creature made another sound, this one almost like a purr of contentment. You're not a monster at all, are you? Marcus said softly. You're just someone who's been alone. For a very long time, for the next few hours, Marcus learned that the creature was far more than he had imagined. It moved with careful grace, always aware of where Marcus was to avoid accidentally stepping on him. When Marcus sat down to rest, the creature settled nearby, close enough to provide warmth, but not so close as to make him uncomfortable. The being watched everything Marcus did with intense curiosity. When Marcus pulled out his water bottle and took a drink, the creature made questioning sounds and pointed to a section of the cave wall. Marcus followed the gesture and found a small spring of clear water bubbling from the rocks. "You're showing me where to find water," Marcus said, amazed. "You're trying to help me." The creature made what sounded like an agreement, a low rumbling that seemed to come from deep in its chest. It moved to another part of the cave and carefully pushed aside some loose stones, revealing a collection of strange fruits and root vegetables growing in the phosphorescent soil. Marcus examined the plants carefully. His scanner showed they were safe for human consumption, rich in nutrients his body needed. The creature had just solved his food problem. "Thank you," Marcus said, looking up at the towering being. "I don't know what to call you. You're too magnificent to be nameless," he thought for a moment, watching the creature's graceful movements despite its enormous size. "Titan," he said finally. "I'll call you Titan." "No." The creature seemed to approve of the name, making that contented purring sound again. It pointed to Marcus and made a questioning noise. "Marcus," the human said, pointing to himself. "My name is Marcus." Titan repeated the sound, or tried to. The creature's vocal cords were designed for much deeper tones, but Marcus could hear the attempt to mimic the syllables of his name. As the days passed, Marcus and Titan developed their own language. Titan would draw symbols in the dirt with one massive finger, and Marcus would respond with his own drawings. They used gestures, expressions, and sounds to bridge the gap between their very different forms of communication. Marcus discovered that Titan was incredibly intelligent. The creature could understand complex concepts when Marcus drew them out, or acted them out. When Marcus showed Titan his scanner and explained what it did through gestures, Titan immediately understood the concept of analyzing and measuring things. In return, Titan began teaching Marcus about the cave system. Through careful drawings and patient demonstration, Marcus learned that the caves were not natural formations but artificial constructions. Titan's people had built them long ago, carving entire cities into the planet's crust. The symbols Marcus had seen were not just decorations, but a form of writing that told stories. Titan patiently taught him to recognize basic symbols, starting with simple concepts like water, food, and safety. Marcus realized he was learning to read the language of an ancient civilization. One evening, as Marcus sat by the small fire he had built using some combustible cave moss, Titan approached with something in its hands. The creature carefully placed a small object next to Marcus, then backed away as if presenting a gift. It was a piece of carved stone, smooth and warm to the touch. The surface was covered in intricate symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the firelight. Marcus examined it carefully, recognizing some of the symbols Titan had taught him. "It's beautiful," Marcus said, looking up at his massive companion. "Is this yours?" Titan made a complex series of sounds and gestures that Marcus had learned meant something like family or belonging. The creature pointed to the stone, then to itself, then to Marcus. Marcus felt a lump in his throat. "You're giving me something that belongs to your family, something important to you." Titan's golden eyes seemed to glow brighter as it nodded in its characteristic head-tilt way. Marcus understood then that he was being given more than just a carved stone. He was being accepted, welcomed into some kind of kinship with this magnificent being. His own crew had abandoned him, declared him expendable, but this creature he had never met before was treating him with more kindness and respect than his own species had shown him. "I don't have anything worthy to give you in return," Marcus said, but Titan was already moving toward him. The creature very gently placed one massive finger on Marcus's chest, right over his heart. Then it touched its own chest in the same place. The meaning was clear. The gift was not the stone, but the bond between them. Marcus felt tears running down his face as he realized what had happened. In the span of just a few days, he had made a friend unlike any he had ever known. Not just a friend, but a companion who valued him for who he was rather than what species he belonged to, as he settled down to sleep that night. With Titan's massive form curled protectively around his small camp, Marcus found himself thinking about his former crewmates. They had seen only a monster where he had found a friend. They had chosen fear where he had chosen trust. Their loss, he thought drowsily. Their loss entirely. Above him, Titan's golden eyes remained watchful through the night, standing guard over the small human who had shown him the first kindness he had known in countless years of solitude. In the morning, there would be more. To learn more, to discover about each other and the ancient civilization that slept beneath their feet. But tonight, neither of them was alone anymore. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus first met Titan, and their friendship had grown deeper with each passing day. Marcus had learned to read basic symbols in Titan's language. While Titan had begun to understand human gestures and expressions, they had developed their own system of communication that worked better than any translation device Marcus had ever used. On this particular morning, Titan seemed different. The massive being stood at the edge of their shared living space, looking toward the deeper parts of the cave system. Its golden eyes held an expression Marcus had learned to recognize as longing mixed with uncertainty. "What is it, my friend?" Marcus asked, approaching carefully. Even after weeks together, he was always amazed by Titan's enormous size. Titan pointed toward the darkness beyond their camp and made a series of gestures that Marcus had come to understand meant more. And family and sleeping. The creature drew symbols in the dirt that Marcus recognized as numbers, far more than just 1 or 2. Marcus felt his heart race with excitement. "There are others like you down there. They're members of your people?" Titan nodded, then drew more symbols. These were harder to understand, but Marcus caught the meanings of waiting and safe and guardian. Titan pointed to itself when it drew the symbol for guardian, then pointed deeper into the caves, where the others apparently slept. "You've been guarding them," Marcus said, understanding flooding through him. "All this time, you've been standing. Watch over your sleeping people." Titan made its agreeable purring sound, then drew more complex symbols. Marcus saw representations of stars and planets, of time passing, of great changes in the world above. The story that emerged from the dirt. Drawings was incredible. Titan's people had once lived on the surface of this world. They had built great cities and developed technology that worked with living things rather than against them. But something had happened, some great disaster that had forced them underground. The symbols showed sickness in the land, poison and the air death spreading across their world, so they had gone into the deep places and entered a kind of sleep, waiting for their world to heal. But someone had to stay awake to watch over them, to make sure they were safe, to decide when it was time for them to wake up again. "And you volunteered to be the guardian," Marcus said softly. "You've been alone down here for how long?" Titan drew symbols that made Marcus's head spin. If he was reading them correctly, Titan had been alone for over 500 years. 5 centuries, Marcus whispered. "You've been alone for 5 centuries, protecting your people while they slept." Titan nodded sadly, then did something it had never done before. The massive being reached out very gently and touched Marcus's face with one enormous finger. The gesture was so tender, so full of gratitude, that Marcus felt tears well up in his eyes. "I'm honored that you shared this with me," Marcus said. "But why are you telling me now? What's changed?" Titan stood up and gestured for Marcus to follow. Together they walked deeper into the cave system than they had ever gone before. The tunnels here were different, more elaborate, with walls that seemed to glow with their own inner light. The technology was unlike anything Marcus had seen before, clearly advanced but somehow organic. As if it had been grown rather than built, they entered a vast chamber that took Marcus's breath away. The ceiling stretched up into darkness, supported by pillars that looked like enormous trees made of living crystal. Along the walls were hundreds of alcoves, each one containing a sleeping figure similar to Titan but smaller. These must be the rest of Titan's people. In the center of the chamber stood a complex structure that hummed with quiet energy. It was part machine, part living organism, with tendrils of light flowing through translucent tubes. Marcus recognized it immediately as some kind of monitoring system, keeping track of the sleeping beings in the world above. Titan led him to the central console and began operating controls that responded to touch and thought. Screens flickered to life, showing images that made Marcus gasp. He could see the surface of the planet, but it looked completely different from when he had arrived. The purple vegetation was healthier, more vibrant. The crystalline formations sang with clearer, more beautiful tones. "The world is healing," Marcus said in wonder. "Your planet's getting better." Titan made agreeable sounds, then showed him more screens. These displayed readings of air quality, soil composition, and biological diversity. Everything was improving, slowly but steadily returning to the levels that had existed before the Great Disaster. "That's why you're showing me this now," Marcus realized. "It's almost time for them to wake up." Titan nodded, then operated more controls. New images appeared, showing the galaxy beyond this world. Marcus saw ships moving between stars, space stations, and planets he recognized from his travels. Titan was showing him that the galaxy was full of other intelligent species, but then Titan showed him something that made Marcus's blood run cold. The images displayed scenes of warfare, exploitation, and destruction. Worlds stripped of their resources, species enslaved or destroyed, the strong preying on the weak without mercy. "You know about the galaxy out there," Marcus said quietly. "You know it's not safe." Titan drew symbols in the air using the light controls, symbols that meant judgment and worthiness and test. The meaning became clear to Marcus as Titan continued the demonstration. Titan's people didn't just sleep to wait for their world to heal. They were waiting for a species worthy of their trust to make contact. They had been testing the various aliens who visited their world, judging whether any of them had the qualities necessary for true partnership. "The others who came before," Marcus said, thinking of his former crewmates, "you were testing them too." Titan showed him recordings of previous visitors. Marcus saw crews from various species land on the planet over the years. Some tried to steal artifacts. Others attempted to capture specimens. A few simply fled when they encountered any signs of intelligence. They couldn't immediately understand or control. All of them had failed the test. "But I'm different," Marcus said, understanding. Dawning on him, "I didn't run. I didn't try to hurt you or take anything. I tried to communicate. I tried to understand." Titan's golden eyes glowed brighter as it nodded. The massive being operated more controls and new images appeared. These showed Marcus himself from that first day, approaching Titan with curiosity. Instead of fear, offering friendship. Instead of violence. "You've been recording everything," Marcus realized. "Studying me, just like I've been studying you." Titan made its purring sound and drew symbols that meant worthy and bridge and teacher. Marcus understood that he had passed some kind of test he didn't even know he was taking. "You want me to help you decide about my species?" Marcus said. "Whether humans are worthy of knowing about your people?" Titan nodded, then showed him one final image. It was a projection of the future, showing the sleeping chambers opening, Titan's people awakening, and the two species working together to build something beautiful and lasting. Marcus looked around the vast chamber at the hundreds of sleeping beings, each one a repository of knowledge and wisdom accumulated over centuries. He thought about the technology he had seen, the ability to work with living systems instead of destroying them, the potential for healing not just this world but others. "The decision isn't just about humans," Marcus said slowly. "It's about the entire galaxy. Your people could change everything." Titan placed a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder and drew one final symbol in the air. It was a symbol Marcus had learned well over their weeks together, the symbol for trust. Marcus stood before the central console, his hands shaking as he realized the weight of the decision before him. Titan watched him patiently, those golden eyes reflecting trust and hope that Marcus wasn't sure he deserved.
Around them, hundreds
of sleeping beings waited in their crystal alcoves, unaware that their fate might rest in the hands of a human they had never met. "I need time to think," Marcus said finally. "This is bigger than just me, bigger than just my species. If I make the wrong choice." Titan made gentle, rumbling sounds and touched the console again. New images appeared, showing Marcus scenes from his own memories over the past weeks. He saw himself sharing his food with Titan, treating the creature's minor injuries with his medical supplies, working patiently to learn their language and customs. "You're showing me that I've already been making choices," Marcus said, understanding. "Every day I've been here, I've been proving something about humanity." Titan nodded and drew symbols in the light that meant character and heart and truth. The massive being was telling him that actions mattered more than words, that Marcus had already shown who he really was. Marcus spent the next 3 days in deep thought, walking through the crystal chambers and studying the sleeping forms of Titan's people. They were all different sizes and shapes, but each one had the same peaceful expression, the same sense of wisdom and patience that Titan possessed. Some were smaller than Titan, others even larger. A few had different armor patterns or additional limbs, suggesting specialization in different roles within their society. On the 4th day, Marcus made his decision. "I want to help them wake up," he told Titan. "But I need you to understand something about humans first. We're not all like me. Some of my people are brave and kind, but others are greedy and violent. If your people wake up, they need to be prepared for both sides of humanity." Titan listened carefully as Marcus explained the complexities of human nature. He told stories of human heroes who sacrificed everything for others and human villains who destroyed entire worlds for profit. He described human art and music and literature, but also human wars and slavery and environmental destruction. "We're a young species," Marcus said. "We make mistakes, sometimes terrible ones, but we also learn from them. We grow. We try to be better than we were." Titan made thoughtful sounds and drew symbols that meant balance and potential and choice. The being understood that Marcus was offering an honest assessment rather than trying to make his species look perfect. "If your people wake up, they can help guide us," Marcus continued. "Teach us better ways to live and grow. Hey, but it has to be a partnership, not a master and student relationship. We both have things to learn from each other." Titan moved to the console and began the awakening sequence. The process was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Light flowed through the chamber like living water, reaching each alcove and gently touching the sleeping forms within. One by one, the beings began to stir. Their eyes opened with the same golden glow as Titan's, and they began to move with slow, careful grace. The first to fully awaken was a being slightly smaller than Titan, with silver markings on its armor instead of gold. It looked around the chamber with confusion until its eyes fell on Titan. The two beings communicated in rapid musical tones that Marcus couldn't follow, but he could sense the joy and relief in their reunion. More beings awakened, each one going through the same process of confusion, recognition, and joy. Soon the chamber was filled with dozens of moving forms, all talking at once in their melodious language. But when they noticed Marcus standing among them, silence fell over the group. Marcus felt very small and very alone as hundreds of golden eyes focused on him. He could feel their curiosity, their caution, and their surprise at finding an alien in their most sacred space. Titan moved to stand beside Marcus and began speaking to the gathered crowd. The conversation went on for a long time, with Titan apparently telling the story of how they had met, how they had become friends, and how Marcus had earned the right to witness their awakening. Some of the beings made sounds of surprise or disbelief. Others moved closer to examine Marcus more carefully. A few seemed skeptical, drawing symbols in the air that Marcus recognized as questions about his worthiness and his species' intentions. Then the silver-marked being that had awakened first approached Marcus directly. It knelt down to bring its face closer to Marcus's level and spoke in careful, accented words. "I am Elder Nyx," it said, struggling with the unfamiliar human language. "Titan has told us much about you, Marcus friend. We are grateful for your kindness to our guardian." Marcus was amazed that Elder Nyx could speak his language at all. "You learned human speech from watching my interactions with Titan?" "We are fast learners when we choose to be," Elder Nyx replied with what might have been a smile. "Titan shared all his memories with us during the awakening. We have experienced your friendship through his eyes." Other beings began approaching, each one offering greetings in broken but improving human speech. They touched Marcus gently with their massive hands. examining his different features with scientific curiosity, but also clear acceptance. "We have been waiting so long," said another being, this one with blue markings on its armor. "Waiting for someone who would see past our size and appearance to find the people underneath." "Your previous visitors saw only monsters or resources to exploit," added a third. "You saw friends and equals." Marcus felt overwhelmed by their welcome, but also by the responsibility he now carried. "I need to tell you about my ship, about the people who abandoned me here. They represent the worst parts of humanity: fear, prejudice, the willingness to sacrifice others for their own safety." Elder Nyx nodded gravely. "Titan showed us those memories as well. We are not surprised. Many species have both light and darkness within them. The question is which side they choose to feed." "We want to help your species choose the light," said the blue-marked being, "but we cannot force growth or wisdom. It must come from within." Over the following days, Marcus worked with the awakened beings to plan their next steps. They showed him technology that could heal worlds, energy systems that worked in harmony with life instead of destroying it, and transportation methods that could cross the galaxy without leaving scars on space itself. But more importantly, they shared their philosophy. They believed that true advancement came not from conquering others, but from lifting them up. They measured success not by what they could take, but by what they could give. They saw strength not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to create and protect. "We will come with you," Elder Nyx finally announced, "not to conquer your galaxy, but to offer friendship to those ready to receive it. And we will start with your species, because they produced one who could see beyond fear to find friendship." Marcus looked at Titan, who had been quietly watching the proceedings. His first friend among the stars would be coming with him back to human space, ready to help bridge the gap between their peoples. "Are you ready to meet the rest of my species?" Marcus had come to love and drew symbols in the air that meant together and adventure. And hope. The age of isolation was ending. The age of partnership was about to begin. 6 months after abandoning Marcus in the cave, Captain Rita Cross sat in a sterile hearing room on New Geneva Station, facing a panel of stern officials from multiple species. The Galactic Ethics Council had called this inquiry after Elena Torres, and several other crew members had filed formal complaints about the incident on Kepler 44-C. "Captain Cross," said the lead investigator, a tall Thalorian with cold blue skin, "you maintain that Dr. Marcus Vale died in an accidental cave collapse?" "That's correct," Rita said, though the words felt like ash in her mouth. She had been saying the same lie for months, but it never got easier. "The geological instability was unexpected. We barely escaped ourselves." Lena Torres sat at the witness table, her face hard with anger. "That's not what happened, and you know it." "Ms. Torres has already given her version of events," the investigator said. "However, without physical evidence or additional witnesses, this council finds itself unable to determine the truth." That's when the alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the station as an automated voice announced, "Unknown vessel approaching. All personnel to stations. Unknown vessel approaching." Through the hearing room's large window, they could see a ship unlike anything in the galactic databases. It was enormous but somehow graceful, with flowing curves that seemed almost alive. The hull appeared to be made of some kind of organic material that pulsed with soft light. "What in the void is that thing?" whispered one of the council members. The ship settled into a docking bay with impossible gentleness for something so large. Everyone in the hearing room pressed against the windows to watch as the airlock opened and figures began to emerge. First came a human figure in a simple gray jumpsuit. Even from this distance, Alina recognized him immediately. "Marcus," she breathed, but it was the figure that emerged behind him that made everyone in the room gasp. Titan ducked through the airlock, his massive form barely fitting through the stations, corridors. His golden eyes swept across the docking bay with calm curiosity as station security backed away in obvious terror. "By all the stars," Captain Cross whispered, "he's alive." And he brought that thing with him. Within hours, the story had spread across the entire station. Dr. Marcus Vale, supposedly killed in a cave collapse, had returned aboard an alien vessel. with a creature that dwarfed anything in known space. But more shocking than his survival was the obvious partnership between human and alien. Marcus walked through the station corridors with Titan beside him, the massive being moving with careful grace to avoid damaging the smaller-scale architecture. They were accompanied by Elder Nyx and several other awakened beings, all of them treating Marcus not as a prisoner or curiosity, but as an honored friend and equal partner. When Marcus finally entered the hearing room, the silence was deafening. He looked older, more confident, with the bearing of someone who had seen wonders beyond imagination. Behind him, Titan had to bend nearly in half to fit through the doorway. "Hello, Rita," Marcus said calmly to his former captain. "Thithra, Kethprim, Nexus 7. His eyes lingered on each of his former crewmates in turn. "I see you've been telling everyone I'm dead." Captain Cross couldn't find words. The creature behind Marcus was clearly the same being they had encountered in the cave. But seeing it here, in civilized space, made their abandonment of Marcus seem even more cowardly. "Dr. Vale," the lead investigator said, recovering his composure, "this council was told you perished in a cave collapse. Would you care to explain what actually occurred?" Marcus looked at Alina, who gave him an encouraging nod. "My crewmates abandoned me," he said simply. "When they saw Titan here, they panicked. It triggered an explosive device to seal the cave entrance with me inside, then fled to orbit." "That's not true." Kethprime clicked desperately. "The human is obviously under some form of alien mind control. Look at that creature. It's clearly holding him prisoner." Titan made a sound that might have been laughter. The massive being carefully knelt down and placed one gentle finger on Marcus's shoulder in an obviously protective gesture. "Does this look like imprisonment to you?" Marcus asked. "Titan and his people saved my life. They taught me their language, shared their knowledge, and offered me friendship when my own species left me to die." Elder Nyx stepped forward and spoke in careful, precise human speech. "We are the guardians of Kepler 4 to see. For 5 centuries, we have waited for a species worthy of partnership. Dr. Vale has proven that humanity has this potential." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. An ancient civilization advanced beyond current galactic standards, and they had chosen humans as potential partners based on Marcus's example. "Your Honor," Elena Torres said, standing up, "I formally request that these crew members be charged with attempted murder and violation of first contact protocols." "Now wait just a minute," Captain Cross protested. "We thought we were saving the expedition. That creature could have killed us all." "That creature," Marcus said, his voice hard with controlled anger, "is more civilized than any of you proved to be. Titan spent weeks caring for me, protecting me, teaching me. He never once threatened me or tried to harm me. Can you say the same about your own actions?" Thyra stood up, her 3 eyes blinking rapidly. "The primitive human doesn't understand. We made a tactical decision to preserve the greater good." "Primitive?" Elder Nyx repeated, and there was ice in the ancient being's voice. "You call the one being among you who showed courage, curiosity, and compassion primitive. Perhaps we should reconsider which species deserves to be called civilized." The implications hit the room like a physical blow. Representatives from the Lorian Council, Nexari Federation, and Keth Collective realized that their species had just been judged and found wanting by a civilization that could clearly influence the future of galactic politics. Over the following weeks, the story of Marcus and Titan spread across known space like wildfire. The footage of them working together, communicating as equals, and demonstrating technologies that seemed like magic became the most watched. Broadcasts in galactic history, the crew members who had abandoned Marcus faced swift justice. Captain Cross was stripped of her command and banned from space travel. Thyra, Keith Prime, and Nexus 7 were recalled by their respective governments in disgrace, their careers destroyed by their cowardice and prejudice. But the real revolution was just beginning. The Guardians began selectively sharing their knowledge with species that demonstrated the values they respected. Humanity, largely because of Marcus's example, became their primary partners in this new age of cooperation. Marcus found himself appointed as the first human ambassador to the Guardian Council, with Titan serving as his permanent partner and advisor. Together, they traveled between worlds, identifying other species and individuals who might be ready for the next stage of galactic evolution. Alina Torres was promoted to captain of her own vessel, leading joint human-guardian exploration missions. She often told the story of how a single human's kindness and courage had changed the course of galactic history. The former crew members, meanwhile, watched from exile as humanity rose to prominence in galactic affairs. They saw news broadcasts of Marcus addressing the Galactic Senate, of human and guardian ships working together to heal damaged worlds, of a new age of cooperation that they could have been part of. Captain Cross, now working as a freight handler on a remote station, sometimes watched those broadcasts with tears in her eyes. She had thrown away the chance to be part of the greatest discovery in galactic history because she was too afraid to see past her own prejudices. Marcus, for his part, bore no grudges. When asked about his former crewmates in interviews, he simply said, "Fear makes people do terrible things sometimes. The important thing is that we learn from these mistakes and choose to be better." Titan, standing beside his human friend, would add in his careful human speech, "Partnership is built on trust. Trust must be earned through actions, not words. Marcus earned our trust by seeing friends where others saw only monsters." The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the most significant discoveries come not from advanced technology or superior firepower, but from the simple willingness to extend friendship to someone different from yourself. And sometimes the primitive species turns out to be the most advanced of all.